Okay, so molecule drawing review. So to do well in this section of the test, you must memorize how to draw the valence electrons for C, H, O, and N. Now, last week we used these four elements. How many electrons does carbon have around it? You can all shout it out. 4, good, yeah, it has 4. How about hydrogen? 1. Oxygen? It has 6, and what's special about them? 2 pairs have to be next to each other. All right, you can't have it like this. It's not going to be straight, okay? It's always going to have a bend in it because you connect things to the single dots, all right? That's super important with oxygen. It's one of the only ones that you really have to think about its shape when we're doing this. And then for nitrogen, how many dots does it have? 5, good, yeah, 5. You could put 2, the 2 can be on any side, all right, it doesn't matter. So we have carbon with 4, hydrogen with 1, oxygen with 6, nitrogen with 5. Those are the ones we need to use, all right? So here's what a question could look like, all right? It's wordy, don't copy it down, all right? But let's draw it out. So first it says, draw a 7 carbon long carbon skeleton. So 7 carbons, right? We could do that, let's do it in a line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, so I just put 7 C's in a row. How many dots does each carbon get? Gets 4, so let's add all 4 of those to each. And this is going to be one molecule. So all the carbons have to be connected to each other, right? It's going to be one molecule, so we need to connect them all. So we're going to connect these in here. Now, I should still be able to see those dots in there. And I think it's really important that you draw all the dots so you don't make any easy mistakes, okay? So I can kind of see that the dots are in there, which is fine. Okay, what's a methyl look like? Does anybody remember? Good, CH3. All right, so it was CH3. Where would you like to put it? There's 2 spots you can't put it. But where would you like to put it? Does anybody remember that rule? Where can it be? Methyls cannot be on the ends. So you can't have it on the first or the last carbon. Any of the other ones are fine, all right? Because if you put it on the end, then it's not a methyl, it's just making this carbon chain longer. So I'm gonna put it over here on the second to last one. So I'll put a C. How many dots does a C get? It gets 4. So then we have to connect those 2 there. And then there's 3 hydrogens, so they get put around it with their dots. And they get connected as well. All right, cool. All right, what's the next one? Carboxylic acid. Where does that have to go? It does have to go on an end, right? It could go on either end. Which end do we usually see it on? Right, because what else do we see it on that it's on the right side of? Like what kind of molecule? Does anybody remember? It's on the right side. The left side's an amino group. Amino acids, yeah, exactly. So the amino part's on the left and the carboxylic acid part's on the right. So on the test, I'll ask you to draw an amino acid as well. So why not, if you are asked to do a carboxylic acid, why not put it on this side also? Because then you know it for this, but you also will know it for the amino acid, all right? Now, what does a carboxylic acid have in it? What are the atoms? There is a C. How many O's? There's 2 O's, and then what's the last one? H, yeah, exactly. And what other functional group is actually in this? Does anyone remember? There's a functional group in there. Yeah.
Hydroxyl?
There is a hydroxyl group. So I'm going to put that on the bottom, okay? So I'll put a dot, and then I'll do a hydroxyl group here, which if you remember is an O and an H. So let's do the oxygen. So I'm going to do 2 dots, 2 dots, because they have to be next to each other. Oh, no. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. All right. So we have our 2 dots, 2 dots. We have our dot here, so I'm going to connect those 2. And then what am I going to put down here? Down here. Yeah, the H for that OH. All right, so there's our hydroxyl group. And then what's going to go on the top? All that's left. Oh, the C is this. We already had the C written. So we don't even need that. We just did an O and an H. Yeah, the C double bonded to an O, which is probably the trickiest thing that we're going to have to do on here. All right, so I'm going to draw an oxygen with the double bonds over there, and maybe like the single bonds kind of over here. All right, and then to do the double bond, we just connect them. So we go here and here. It looks pretty ugly for a molecule, but that's okay. All right, that's fine. If you leave it like this, totally cool. We have our carboxylic acid right there. All right. Any questions with that? No? Okay, so we did the methyl, we did the carboxylic acid. All right, amino group, where do you want to put that? Front, back, top, middle? Where do you want to put it? I'm going to put it on the left because we just talked about amino acids, right? Amino acids, the amino is on the left side. Now, just because it has an amino and a carboxylic acid, this is not an amino acid. But just so we can practice that. All right, so amino groups have which letters in them? Not CH. No C's, actually. What is it? NH what? NH2. Very good. Yeah, they have NH2. So we'll put the N first. All right, we'll put dots in there. All right, like that. So it has 5. We'll connect it to the carbon. And then there's 2 single ones, so they get the H's. All right, so then we get this here. So we get an amino functional group. All right, is everybody okay with that? Next step. It says, then add as many hydrogens and electrons as are necessary to make the correct Lewis structure for this molecule. Your final structure can have more than 7 carbons. Don't add dipoles. We're not going to figure out if it's polar or not. All right, none of that stuff. It says, on the real test, you could also be asked to draw these additional functional groups. So you do need to know a hydroxyl. You do need to know an aldehyde. All right, which was this. You do need to know a ketone, which is when it's in the middle. All right, so just like we were doing before, but those could show up as well. As you can see, if this question was on the test, there'd probably be 2 versions of it, right? Or 3 versions. Each of you might get a couple different functional groups, all right? Okay, so back to this problem. Are we done with this? Do we have as many hydrogens as needed? No, where do we need to put a hydrogen?
The open space.
Yeah, in any of the open spaces. And what is an open space? What are you looking for? Yeah, if it has 1 electron, it's an open space. If there's 2 electrons, it's not open, right? You can't connect it there. You can only connect it where there's a single one. So I'm going to change the color so we can distinct this. This is all the hydrogens we're adding with their dots. Basically, everywhere there's a single dot, we're going to put an H. All right, any questions with that? All right, so we're going to start with an amino acid example. Bella told us let's start in the middle, the carbon. And then we'll put the hydrogen on top. And then we'll connect them. What do we put to the left? Good, the amino group. So I'm going to just put an N. I'll put the 2 dots on top and then 3 dots around it. All right. I'll connect it to the carbon. All right, and then we'll have 2 hydrogens down here, so 1 H and then 1 H, connect, connect. Okay, so we have the amino part of our amino acid. What do we want to do next? All right, that sounds good. Let's go with the carboxyl group. So over here we have another C. All right. With this we have that double bonded oxygen. So we'll draw an oxygen up here with its dots. Double bonded, so we get a line here and a line there. And then on the bottom we have a hydroxyl group. So another oxygen, so let's put in its dots. All right, so we get something that looks like that. Hope we need to connect this. and then the R group goes here. And I said, let's just make the R group an H just to make it easy. So we'll just connect it there. So we have our amino, we have our carboxylic acid, we have our hydrogen at the top, and then the R group at the bottom there. All right, and then that's pretty much it. Any questions with that one?